Hello guys, welcome back to our discussions for the different kinds of obligation. So, if you have noticed in our YouTube channel, wala tayong divisible and indivisible obligation. So here in this video, we will discuss to you divisible and indivisible obligations. So let's start with the definitions. What is a divisible obligation? According to the law, it is one the object of which in its delivery or performance is capable of partial commitment. Indivisible obligation, on the other hand, is one the object of which in its delivery or performance is not capable of partial fulfillment. Now, to better understand divisible and indivisible obligation, let us distinguish the two. Now, in determining whether an obligation is divisible or not, the controlling circumstance is not the possibility or impossibility of partial prestation, but the purpose of the obligation or the intention of the parties. Hence, even though the object or service may be physically divisible, an obligation is indivisible if so provided by law or intended by the parties. So this is provided for under Article 1225, paragraph 3. However, if the object is not physically divisible or the service is not susceptible of partial performance, the obligation is always indivisible. The intention of the parties to the contrary notwithstanding, this rule is absolute. So, to distinguish or to determine whether an obligation is divisible or not, you look at the intention of the parties. If the intention is not apparent, if you cannot determine the intention, then you look at the controlling circumstances. Okay? Whether it can be performed or it is capable of partial fulfillment or not. Now, let us have this example. D agreed to pay C 10,000 pesos in 4 equal monthly installments. As you can see, the 10,000 pesos, if it is payable for 4 equal monthly installments, then you can say that this is a divisible obligation because pwede mong paghati-hatian yung 10,000 pesos, right? In 4 monthly installments. Then, the obligation of D is divisible because it is capable of partial performance. But what if, for example, the parties intended it not to be divisible? So, their intention will be controlling, despite the fact that the 10,000 pesos can really be divided into as many shares as there are. But if the agreement is that D will pay on a certain date the full amount of 10,000, the obligation is indivisible. Although money is physically divisible because the intention of the parties is that the obligation must be fulfilled at one time and as a whole. So, meaning to say, if you say divisible or indivisible, the nature of the subject matter or the nature of the prestation, hindi yun magmamatter. Titingnan natin kung ano yung intention ng parties, just like in this case. Now, what are the principles that you should remember for this particular kind of obligation? So we have in Article 1223, the divisibility or indivisibility of the things that are object of the obligations in which there is only one debtor and only one creditor does not alter or modify the provisions of Chapter 2 of this title. Article 1224, a joint indivisible obligation gives rise to indemnity for damages from the time any one of the debtors does not comply with its undertaking. The debtors who may have been ready to fulfill their promises shall not contribute to the indemnity beyond the corresponding portion of the price of the thing or of the value of the service in which the obligation consists. So, what does this provision means? In Article 1223, so we have here actually kinds of indivisibility. Okay, we have kinds of division, qualitative division. When you say qualitative division, this is based on quality, not on number or quantity. For example, A and B are heirs of C. They agreed to divide their inheritance as follows: to A, a house and lot and home appliances, and to B, a rice field, a car, and 10,000 cash. So on quality, not on the number or quantity. When you say quantitative, based on quantity rather than on quality. Like in the preceding example, if the inheritance consists only of a rice field, its partition by meets and bounds into 2 equal parts is a quantitative division. Another example is when A and B divide 300 kavans of palay harvested from the rice field or the 10,000 cash. We also have ideal or intellectual division, or one which exists only in the minds of the parties. Suppose the car and the rice field in the first example were inherited by both A and B. As co-owners, their 1/2 shares in the car are not separable in a material way, but only mentally. Similarly, before the land is actually divided between A and B, they are merely co-owners and neither one of them can say that he is the absolute owner of a specific portion thereof. So, ibig sabihin lang nito, tatlo, di ba, yung kinds of divisibility? We have qualitative, quality, quantitative, quantity, and ideal or intellectual division. When you say qualitative, yung basis ng ating division is based on the quality. Hindi tayo nagbabase sa value or sa madami ba, pinabase natin yung quality. Like house and lot, home appliances, then yung sa isa, rice field sa kanya, car, and 10,000 cash. For quantitative, nagbabase tayo sa quantity tsaka sa rather than the quality. The number or like for example, yung value ng lupa. Okay? Like for example, yung total na assets na naiwan is 1 million. So when you say quantity, hati tayo dyan. So 500,000 sa'yo, 500,000 sa akin. So meaning to say, hindi mo expected dyan na physically ihati mo talaga yung yung total na assets kasi yung assets kasi pwedeng may bahay, may car, etc. So pwedeng ibenta nyo lahat yun, then hati kayo. For ideal naman, like sabi ko, kunyari bahay, car, tsaka pera. Tapos, ang worth nun is 1 million lahat. Pero, hindi naman of equal yun lahat na value. So, like, say, 500,000 yung bahay, 300,000 yung car, yung pera, 200,000. So, meaning to say, meron kayong pwede, kung hindi nyo yan siya actually ihati talaga, pero in law, hati talaga kayo, then ideal or intellectual division yan. Nasa imagination lang. Okay? Pero kung hatiin nyo na, it's either qualitative yung hati or quantitative. Pwedeng, sige, sa'yo na lang yung bahay, tsaka lupa, kasi 500,000 naman yun, tsaka sa akin yung car, tsaka pera. Okay? That is qualitative. Based on quality. Quantity naman, parang binavalue nyo, kina-quantify ninyo kung magkano yung makukuha niya. Ano na lang natin, kunyari, yung bahay is worth 700,000. Tapos yung car is worth 200,000. Tapos yung pera, 100,000. So, yung quality dyan, hindi ka nagmamatter kung magkano yung makukuha mo. Yung quality niya, yung gusto mo. So, that is qualitative. Yung sa quantity naman, hindi pwede na sa kanya yung bahay lang. So, dapat hatiin lahat. So, that is quantity. Okay? What about indivisibility? What are the kinds of indivisibility? We have legal indivisibility, conventional indivisibility, and natural divisibility. When you say legal, where a specific provision of law declares as indivisible, like yung law ang magsasabi. Conventional naman kapag napag-usapan ng parties. Natural kapag yung nature of the object or possession does not admit of division. Example, yung car. Yung nature ng car, hindi naman siya pwedeng mahati, di ba? Sa'yo yung gulong, sa kanya yung body, hindi naman ganun. So, hindi siya talaga physically, hindi siya capable of division. Pero ma'am, pwede ba yan ma-divide? Yes, pwede. Pwede nyo ibenta yung car, tapos yung proceeds, hatian nyo. So, that becomes divisible. Article 12.2.5, for the purposes of the preceding articles, obligations to give definite things and those which are not susceptible of partial performance shall be deemed to be indivisible generally. No, kapag hindi siya susceptible of partial performance, gaya nga ng car, di ba? Ng bahay. Hindi naman physically talaga yan na partially, di ba? Mahati mo yan. So, paano yun? Kunyari, heirs kayo tapos may naiwan na bahay. So, sino ngayon ang kukuha sa bahay, di ba? Most probably, yung iba, ginagawa nila, binibenta na lang nila yung bahay, tsaka yung proceeds, hati-hatian nila. Yung iba naman, kung sino yung kukuha ng bahay, babayaran na lang niya yung ibang heirs. So parang ganun. Kasi nga, physically, hindi siya susceptible of partial performance. Generally, indivisible siya. Pero, you can make it divisible, no? Yung sabi ko, pwede yung ibenta or pwedeng akuin na lang ng isa, bayaran niya yung iba. Okay? When the obligation has for its object the execution of a certain number of days of work, the accomplishment of work by metrical units or analogous things which by nature are susceptible of performance, it shall be divisible. Like sa trabaho, di ba? It can be divisible kasi you can divide it by the number of hours, number of days, etc. However, even though the object or service may be physically divisible, an obligation is indivisible if so provided by law or intended by the parties. Yun yung sabi natin kanina, no? Kahit na divisible siya, pero kung i-treat siya as indivisible by the parties, then wala tayong magagawa. Then, ibig sabihin, that is conventional indivisibility based sa agreement ng parties. Pero, kung meron din mga divisible things na ay meron din mga indivisible na ginagawang divisible. Kasi, yun na nga, depende sa intention ng parties. In obligations not to do, divisibility or indivisibility shall be determined by the character of the prestation in each particular case. So, that ends our discussion for divisible and indivisible obligation. Thank you and thank you for listening and see you next video. Bye!